Welcome to Security and GRC Decoded, the podcast where security, governance, risk, and compliance professionals, CISOs, executive leaders, and practitioners can stay ahead of industry trends and challenges. I'm your host, Raj Krishnamurthy, founder of Compliance Co. Join us twice a month to bring you expert insights, actionable strategies, and real-world stories to elevate your security, governance, risk, and compliance programs. Each week, we decode the complexities of GRC to help you make smarter decisions and drive innovation in your organization. Let's dive into today's conversation. Welcome. Hey. Welcome to Security and GRC Decoded. I'm Raj Krishnamurthy, your host, and today we have the awesome Jeevan Singh as our guest today. Jeevan is a director of security engineering at Tripling. Let's decode. Jeevan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here, Raj.
So, Jeevan, before we dive into detail about you, what is one controversial opinion that you hold around security and security engineering?
Yeah, I don't know if it's controversial to me in general, but like maybe over to the entire security org. Like, I really believe that security should be a part of engineering orgs. And I've been at companies where I have reported into maybe the CFO org or other parts of the org. But I feel that whenever we report into the CTO, it makes the entire program better. It doesn't matter if you are part of security engineering or GRC or even security trust. Being part of the engineering org, it sort of forces us a couple of different things. One is it forces all of us to think and act like engineers, which I think is a great thing for our industry just in general. But also, it gets us away from being part of the cost center. I hate being lean in my security team. I do want to make sure that we are part of engineering, so we're not lean. We're thought about as people that actually add value to the company. I've been at one company where we actually had a SKU for security as well, which is fantastic. Like we not only were we not thought about as cost centers, we're actually bringing in money for the business. Our very large enterprise customers, we provide them a security SKU and say, hey, if you want to add more security, it's going to add 10% to your overall purchase, but you'll have access to our incident response team, will have access to all these other items, which we were surprised how many companies were extremely happy with that. So maybe not controversial for certain people, but like being part of the engineering org makes better security teams.
No, makes sense. And what do you say to people who say that it removes the separation of duties? Engineering is under constant pressure for releases, right? And security is the gateway function that keeps you safe. And if you put them under engineering, you're forced to do things that you would not do otherwise. What do you say to something like that?
Yeah, I think if you are a part of a good org, that would never happen. So I've been a part of a lot of great organizations where we would all map into the CTO. The CTO would have to make the decision. At the end of the day, the CTO does not want to put his stamp of approval behind something that may cause harm to the business. They are executives. They understand risk. So if we had the choice of pushing product or avoiding fixing a security vulnerability, they're going to actually sit down, actually understand what's going on, and really figure out what's the right way forward. So the risk tolerance of the business, they would really understand and make sure that they're doing the right thing. So that was one concern at a previous org where we were reporting to the CTO, who reported to the CEO. The CTO was going to move on. So they're going to move us under the VP of engineering, who was reporting it to the CEO. So our concern was like the CEO was always the mediator and they would make the right decision for the entire business. We're worried that the VP of engineering might not have the right alignment for prioritization as we would, but we were wrong. The VP of engineering did really care about security and making sure that we were delivering the right outcomes in itself. So I don't disagree with you, Raj. There are a lot of bad companies out there, a lot of bad leaders just in general. But if you land at a great company that has thoughtful leadership, your program is going to be tenfold better than being being outside of the engineering org.
Got it. Does the size of the company change your opinion?
Oh man, yeah, you're really getting down into the nitty-gritty. I've been in all sorts of. I think like to the companies that I've been a part of, being a part of engineering is the right. So I've been part of 10, 15,000 person orgs, and up to that scale for sure. I do think that everything is fine there. Smaller orgs, I think it's even better having security in engineering. If you're talking about 50 or 100,000 people orgs, I have no idea.
Got it. Got
But
it.
yeah, but I up to the size of orgs that I've been, I think you know what? No, I do think it should always be under engineering, just
Okay.
because like we have to think like engineers. Like
Because your point is it's common sense. Why,
yes,
how would the size matter? Okay.
yeah,
No,
exactly.
I
No,
get it.
no, we have to be
I
part
get
of
it.
engineering. We have to think like engineers. We have to deliver programs like engineers.
I get it. I get it. I love it. I love it. Maybe let's talk about you. How did you get started with cybersecurity, Jeevan?
Yeah. This happened at university days. So I was I went to university. I had a great friend that would skip classes a lot. So I'd pick him up at lunch, and we'd go to our labs after that. And then one time, he's like, "Jeevan, come in. I want to sort of make sure. I want to show you something." So I went in. He loaded up his laptop, and he showed me he had cracked about a third of the engineering org's passwords there. And I'm like, what the hell is this? And then he really explained to me how he did it. And he didn't do it for any malicious reason. He did it so just to show that he can. And I wanted to make sure that he couldn't crack my password.
Mm-hmm.
So that sort of triggered something in my mind. Later in my university life, my fourth year courses, I took on some really advanced mathematics courses, which had the basis of encryption, and that was really interesting to me. Chatted with the prof there. I'm like, what are more stuff that I can learn about in this field? And he gave me a couple of books, and then I stumbled upon Simon Singh wrote a great book on the history of cryptography. Talked about way back pre B like in BC era, and then all the way up to Enigma itself, and really understanding how security was thought about and felt, and that kept on making me interesting. And whenever I joined the workforce, um, I always ended up somehow dealing with security issues. So my first company was e-commerce, and one time when the logs were looking at it, and we're like, "How the hell does this individual know this information? Like, why are they making these sort of requests?" The next company was a company that built tools for market research, and anytime we ran a pen test, I would grab the results and like, I'm fixing all of these. And at that company, I got more and more responsibilities. I became an engineering manager, so I taught my team how to fix all those vulnerabilities. Then I had a couple of teams reporting into me, so I taught them. And then at some point, I was like, you know what? It's easier for just me to teach engineering how to fix the vulnerabilities. It's a lot less than so. I set up some noon hours where I show them how to think offensively. So there are a lot of these great sites way back when where I showed people that they're purposefully vulnerable and how threat actors actually think about when they attack the website. So I ran these lunch and learns, and we hired this fantastic VP of security. And this individual was like, Jeevan, join my team. I'm like, I don't know. I like this engineering thing. It's a lot of fun. It took him a month, but he convinced me to join his team. And after that first day, I'm like, Ben, I'm never going back to engineering. The security stuff it took me only one day to realize how much I've enjoyed it. And I've enjoyed it since. So I got lucky to actually build out the security program at that particular company. Joined a few more companies after that, built out the program from scratch. So it's been a fantastic journey from the security side.
Got it. Can you maybe paint a picture of the different aspects of security that you have touched?
Yeah,
Um,
for the vast majority, I've spent my time on the application security side, and really dove deep. known for my opinions on application security. But I've been very fortunate that first few companies that I've joined had very small security teams. So I worked that first company where Ben pulled me over. I worked really closely with the privacy and compliance managers. They weren't able to really speak the engineering language as I was. So they would tell me the requirements. I would translate it into engineering words and architecture and sort of be able to work through that way. And because of that, that actually gave me such a well-rounded experience within security itself. So in that company, I had to do incident response. We'd notice stuff and I'd jump in, really understand what was going on. Sat down in the room with auditors and provided them guidance on how engineering work. Did a little bit of privacy stuff. Actually wrote some SOC 2 control wording as
Nice.
well there. Yeah, so got a little flavor of everything, and that's really helped me in my career. So I have a lot of respect for all the different security teams, what they bring to the table. Everyone's job is hard. It's a hard world that we're living in. Dealing with all the compliance side, dealing with auditors, and trying to juggle all of these different compliance frameworks while you're always lean, just in general. Usually I feel that GRC teams are quite lean. And having to always learn more things that are happening. We're getting all these other new frameworks in place. Like GDPR is not new, but like there's always new stuff that are coming out and making sure that the business is complying to all these different areas. So I've been lucky that I've been able to have build really good, strong relationships with all these security teams. I've worked with them in ways that I feel that has provided value for me internally for my team, but also them. So yeah, it's been fantastic being able to touch all different aspects of security.
Got it. Have you worked on the OWASP Application Security Verification Standards, ASVS?
I haven't worked on it, but I've definitely used it to inform parts of my program in the past. ASVS is awesome. I'm based in Vancouver. I'm involved with OWASP Vancouver quite a bit. I've been the co-chapter lead for the last about 8 years. My partner in crime, Farshad, his team is actually involved with making modifications to ASVS.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
so
Hmm.
heavily involved with ASVS. My partner is heavily involved. He does a lot of talks about ASVS. It is a fantastic standard for just in general for making sure that your program, if you really want to understand controls and implementing controls, it's a great standard to have a look, dive deep into in itself.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. Now, our podcast is titled Security and GRC Decoded. So I have to ask you this question. What is your view of GRC?
There's a big pause. So, I guess it's both positive and negative, if I'm being honest. So I've been at organizations where my GRC teams are sometimes a challenge to work with, just because they are non-technical and they have opinions that don't fit well with engineering orgs in itself. So they may say, hey, I think you should implement service-to-service authentication as a control. Sure, it's easy to just say that, but actually implementing that is really, really difficult in itself. So you have to make sure that, depending on how much legacy infrastructure that you have, bringing it up to speed. So having that gap of really technical knowledge has been difficult. But on the other hand, I've worked with really highly technical GRC folks as well, and being able to work with them, if I felt that it has accelerated our program. They showed me ways that we can use potential sledgehammers with engineering to make them drive their programs in the right direction. So it's been a mixed bag with folks working within GRC. I don't mind working with non-technical GRC folks. I've had worked with a lot of them throughout my career. The ones that really work well with me are ones that think proactively and really make sure that I don't have to do a fire drill because auditors are coming in 2 weeks and these controls, we have gaps in them.
Got
I
it.
hate that. I don't want that. If you tell me 6 months, 9 months in advance that these are the controls I own, this is the expectation, these are the evidence that we want people to sort of have in itself, then it's different there. But like, don't give me a fire drill. I don't want fire drills. My program is very focused, and I don't want to get off track of my regular things that I work on. So don't give me fire drills.
And how technical do you expect them to be?
I don't expect them to. Oh man, I was going to say I don't expect them to write code, but I've worked with GRC people that have written code, and it's made their programs so much better as well. So, I'll give an example of it. At a particular company, we had a GRC team that was small. Like, it was a small security team. I think we might have had 20, 25 people in all of security. And there's a lot of toil on the GRC team. They have to do a lot of manual tasks. And one of the tasks that they had to do is that when a customer requested access to our pen tests, like an executive summary for a pen test, they want to watermark it so that we know if it leaks, who was the one that actually accidentally leaked it or purposefully leaked it. So they would go into the tool and sort of like um, do it, and it was just so manual, so painful. And as we started growing, there were more and more and more requests in itself. So what they ended up doing is they hired what they call the GRC workflow engineer.
Hmm.
It was just to really reduce the toil on the team, reduce all that manual work, and at first, they set up a page. So anyone on the sales side, if they needed that documentation, they say, okay, this is documentation for this client, this particular email address of this client. And it would to input that information. 5 minutes later, it has all of the documentation that they need, all with watermarks. So the sales team was self-serving it. At some point, they felt that, you know what, a certain side customer, they're always going to need this sort of information. So they actually built it into the software itself. Like, okay, why even bother salespeople on this if these customers actually need it? Let's build it into the application, and they made it available in the application. So you have to be a certain size, have to have certain license with us, but they made it self-serve so that these individuals never have to even bother sales. They can get the information themselves. So I really enjoy working with those type of individuals that are understanding, like, this is while it is adding value, and we're getting things that our customers need, it's not really adding value. They could do much more important GRC work itself. So being able to automate some of these simple workflows, I don't expect them to write code good enough to put it into the app itself. But if they're able to create that page and be able to automate a little bit of work so that they don't have to do it and the sales people can self-service themselves, I think that's fantastic in itself.
Okay. And what do you think is the perception of leaders, especially in tech forward companies?
Yeah,
And what is their view of GRC, in your
I,
opinion?
I'll answer this in twofold. One is like I do see leaders, especially as you mentioned, tech forward companies. They are now thinking of GRC as an engineering org, type of org as well. They do want to hire security engineers for the GRC. They want to make sure that we're automating evidence collection or reducing that toil and pain that these GRC folks have in itself. But like also in tech forward companies, it always feels that GRC is sort of on the sidelines in itself. You do your thing. If you have problems, reach out to us. Otherwise, just I want to make sure I get my SOC 2 accreditation, ISO, whatever other ones, PCI. Just leave me alone, sort of situation. Only bubble things up if there's a problem. Um, I actually, I don't like that. Like, I'd really enjoy partnering with GRC because I feel that working together, having a singular security vision focus can really drive both the security engineering program and GRC program. Let me give you an example. We talked a little bit about service to service authentication. So I love having organizations where they have these hard, difficult controls to implement, but it makes the entire program much better to do. But before we get to like service to service, there are a bunch of steps along the way. And I do want our compliance colleagues to sort of ensure that we're consistently, incrementally getting better with our application itself. And maybe we don't start with service to service. We start very low on the total pole. Do we have TLS end to end? Okay, we're doing that well. We keep moving it up, up, up to make sure that we're getting to the place where we need to. And I want to make sure I partner with compliance to make that happen. Another pet peeve that I have is like a lot of companies, they don't delete client data, especially after customers churn. It annoys me to no end. Like we have a contractual obligation. Obviously, it's usually lower on the priority to do that because it's sort of like a no victim crime if nothing happens, if we don't have a breach. But the moment we have a breach, there's all hell breaks loose because we're housing data that we shouldn't have in itself. And I love working with compliance to highlight that to the executive team, working with them, especially on the risk side, and having the executive team understand the risk of housing sort of that sort of data, and working with them to make cases for getting that sort of work done and prioritized in our backlog. So I do feel that working tightly with the GRC team, we can actually move forward with our good security initiatives that we want to do. And I definitely don't want them to feel that they should be sidelined. We should come work together and sort of figure out what are the needs of the business and how do we always incrementally improve our security posture.
Got it. Got it. I think basically what you're saying is a security-led compliance program changes the perception for the better.
Yes,
You had earlier talked about when we chatted up earlier is that you said you don't see compliance as to be a finished line. Can
I
you
agree.
double click on that?
Yeah, it's just like what we've just been talking about. Like, I feel that compliance is both the starting line and the middle line, midway through the race, and then the end of the race, and then we push it forward. We keep changing the goalposts with compliance. It's I I love starting compliance regimes with really, really easy targets for engineering. It's really hard to just say, okay, we're going to go from zero to security to 100% security. It doesn't happen. It's hard. It's really hard. It causes a lot of friction within the business. My first security role, we went from zero trust principles to five trust principles for our SOC 2. It was a pain. It was very difficult. It caused a lot of challenges, and eventually we came out of it doing really well. So, um, and similarly, I want to make sure that I'm partnering with our compliance org to understand what controls that we should put in place and keep challenging engineering year over year to get better and better. So we talked about a little bit about a couple of different girls. So let's talk about secrets. Secrets is a thing that bothers Ed to me to no end. Making sure that like we leak secrets. Every company leaks secrets. So let's make sure that we take steps on avoiding it. So first step might be having detections in place. And that's it. Like that's our goal. Have detections in place, and then we'll build a program to rotate secrets whenever we notice a new one get leaked. Next one might be centralizing our secrets. Let's make sure that we put it into a centralized store where we are. It's harder for us to leak in itself. Maybe the third part of it is like we should be rotating secrets. Maybe no secret should be more than a year old or 6 months old, whatever it is. But we would leverage our compliance regime to say, okay, this is the baseline. Let's continue building up to make sure that we're doing better and better and better for our program itself. So definitely want to establish a low baseline just at the beginning. Like detecting secrets is not a hard thing to do, and it's easy for everyone to understand why it's important. And then getting to the fact that auto-rotating secrets maybe at the very end. Every time we push to production, we auto-rotate all of our secrets. So that could be like the very high part, and just making way all the way there. I love being able to work with our compliance partners to actually make that happen.
Got it. So what I'm hearing you say is that compliance, and correct me if I'm wrong, compliance gives you an organizing set of principles around how we can manage security, but it also gives you a baseline from which you can continue to keep expanding. And it is sort of a reinforcing loop, right? I mean, you do better compliance, you do better security, and we each challenge each other in a very interesting, I mean, it is friction, but it is healthy friction.
Yes. I love
Okay.
that. It is healthy friction. I enjoy having friction amongst security teams. And I feel that having healthy friction, having healthy discussions about what is right is always important in itself. Like, compliance may feel that we want to do something, but given our product security program, we know that it's impossible to implement at this point. When we sort of figure out what's the middle ground that we can work with, that friction is required, and not just like compliance in AppSec, but also compliance with our infrastructure security,
Got it.
compliance with our incident response program. I want that healthy friction. I want compliance to always challenge us on the things that we are working on. And I don't want us to push back on compliance as well and say, hey, this is not the right time or this is not the right way of approaching this problem.
Got it. That makes sense. I think you have talked a great deal about good security engineering, and security engineering as a discipline. How do you think it solves GRC problems?
Oh, this is a good one. So when we think about GRC, we really think about just the compliance regimes that we are influenced under, or the SOC 2 controls that we have. I, I really want GRC to move beyond that. I want them to be, talk a little bit about them being technical. I want them to actually be somewhat like engineers themselves. So when you have SOC 2, I don't want us to think about, okay, I have to ping these individuals to get the evidence. Let me review the evidence. This evidence isn't good enough. Let me ping these individuals again. I'd rather have a partnership where, why don't we talk about um, a particular subject, like access control. That's in typical a lot of these compliance. Once a quarter, we should be reviewing people that have access to a particular tool and validating that it looks good or not. Well, why don't we fully automate that particular process? Let's make sure that um, either we have to collect evidence, so let's have screenshots and make sure that we drop it into a central location and maybe a Slack DM with me and compliance and me putting a thumbs up emoji saying, this looks good. These are the
Beautiful.
right people as a part of it. Definitely continue raising the bar when it comes to automation so that I want compliance people to have I don't want them to do manual work that doesn't really provide value to the business. I want them to actually dig deeper. So if we say that we are actually deleting customer data, I want them to go and check, look at databases. Is the data actually deleted, or are we saying it is deleted? Let's look at the code. Is everything implemented correctly? Are we hitting all the data stores? Like you are deleting in your Postgres database, but what about S3? What about Snowflake? What about all these other different areas? I want our GRC partners to be able to really dive much deeper than just the control wording itself. I want them to be able to potential would be like creating those verification scripts. And so
Got it.
let me create some SQL scripts just to say that, hey, this tenant ID, let me see if it actually is deleted in this data store. And creating those scripts and validating, have those audit trails, these technical audit trails to validate these items itself. I feel that that'll be much more beneficial and interesting for GRC folks themselves rather than having conversations and making sure that without being able to really dive that in that technical depth, just saying that everything looks fine. Engineer said they've done it. I trust that they've done it.
Got it. So, would you say that then GRC, the way you're describing it, GRC becomes an observability function to security engineering and maybe other parts of the organization as well?
I think it would be one of the capabilities that they have. So for sure. Like it would be nice that they can um, trust but verify.
Just not verify.
Trust but verify. Be able to do that. Be able to and like it feels like, man, I feel like we're sort of like a quality assurance part of the organization, like validating that we are doing the things that we have stated that we're doing, but also like having the better conversations just in general. So, understanding one of my favorite privacy managers that I've ever worked with was so technical that was actually providing architecture advice for privacy and say, hey, we have our architecture set up this way. If we change the architecture in this way, and we reduce where we're pushing out I think it's going to be easier for data deletion, or if a customer or individual wants a right to be forgotten, be able to implement that. It'd be nice if GRC can do that sort of stuff, being able to provide solutions to the business saying, hey, the way that we're building this functionality is going to be problematic. It'll be better if we think about building in this way, because it will help ensure that we adhere to this Australian law that we had to adhere to. So
Got it.
being able to influence architecture, because for us as security engineering, we only look at the security aspect of things. Typically, we do threat modeling. A lot of us use Stride, and that's our box that we work in. We're not nearly as familiar with CCPA, GDPR, all these other different regimes that we have to sort of align to. It'd be nice to have a GRC architect that can come in and say, hey, these are the controls that we should be like, these are our SOC controls, these are our contractual obligations that we have in our MSA. This is how we should be actually thinking about building the tooling and functionality in our system, and being able to be another member that can help inform engineering how they should be building their application.
That's a very interesting perspective. So, what you're basically saying is that just like security looks at different aspects of business and products, you're saying GRC should also look at from a slightly different perspective, right? You are more about protecting, and the GRC teams, you want them to help you understand what this means in terms of the control landscape, the regulation, the standards, so on and so forth. But they have to be, I think, going back to your previous point, they have to be equally technical
Yeah.
in order to be able to understand this and also to be able to contribute back to security and other parts of the organization. So you're essentially advocating that there has to be a strong relationship between not just between GRC and security, but also between GRC and engineering and GRC and product management and all that stuff. Is
Yeah,
that correct?
yeah, exactly. Right now, we do have security architects that sort of are informed, but they're not nearly as informed as the GRC individuals of all of these controls. I would love to have a GRC archetype there, where they're very informed with all of the contractual obligation regulatory requirements, and is able to really dive deep with engineering in itself. So
Got it. Got
yeah,
it. You're talking about a very strong culture, and I think one of the earlier conversations, you had talked about sort of a Node.js vulnerability example. Do you remember
yeah,
that?
yeah.
Okay, can you maybe for our audience, can you double click on that so that
Yeah, let me give a lot more context.
okay,
So, we talked a lot about toil and things that provide a lot of toil, and this is that segment company, previous company that I worked at, and our CISO Colleen there. She's like, is there a way to sort of automate threat modeling? How do we reduce the toil for for threat modeling? So, threat modeling could be a cumbersome project, like depending on like how large the feature that we build. It could be a multi-day thing that we do, or it could be a smaller. If it's a small feature, it's easy to push out in an hour or two. So, I sat down with my naivety, like, yeah, this should be doable. And why don't I just train engineers to do it? So I started sitting down. I mapped out some trainings that I think that would have worked for engineering. Beta tested it, and I got commentary from engineering about the training. Iterated it a couple of times, and I got the training into a really good place. So, um, our initial goal was to go out and reduce the amount of threat models that we have to do, and push that responsibility a lot more on the engineering teams. So I spent the first couple of quarters training engineering. And then the next part, next phase is that the observation phase. I'm going to let them do the threat model. We'll be in the same meeting with them, but we're going to observe how they're approaching it. And if they miss any critical or high vulnerabilities, I'll hint to them. I won't tell them what they're missing. I'll hint to them so they'll learn about it. It's sort of how I learned how to threat model. I'd have very senior security people that would say, "Hey, did you consider this? What about that? Um, do you think there could be an authentication vulnerability in this particular area?" And sort of those prompts help me really expand my knowledge in it. So we did the observation with most of the teams, and the next one was next phase is sort of just validating that they've done it correctly. So a few of the teams made to the validation stage where they would do the threat model. I would look at the artifacts and just validate that they found all the critical and high vulnerabilities. So that was a goal: reduce the amount of work that we're doing and help engineering be able to self-service this, and they can move faster, and we didn't have to do as much. And what happened during that is what I didn't realize is once you tell engineering what to look for, first, they're way better at threat modeling than you are as a security engineer. They know exactly where to dive
Because
deep
they are
into
closer to the
code.
problem.
They're closer to the problem. They've been working on that for quarters or years, that particular feature space. And for me, it may take me months to dive that deep into the code to really understand how things are working and what problems that might arise from it. So once we tune them how to look at things, they're able to do much better, robust threat models than we were. And the second part is that once they understood the things that we're concerned with, they automatically started doing those things. So the example, the Node.js example, we had one service that we had multiple services that had Node.js. So one particular winter day, Node alerted that, hey, we have a fix for a high priority vulnerability. Whenever you have time, please patch it up. So one of our engineering managers on the East Coast noticed that, and he was like, "Okay, this is actually important. Let me patch mine up." He patched his up, checked the source code to see if there were any other instances of it. There were two other instances. He created tickets for those two engineering teams and got commitment that they'll patch it either by end of day or the end of the next day. And this all happened while most of us security engineers were on the West Coast. We were still sleeping. So all of this happened, and he informed us afterwards, like, "Hey, we noted this. Don't worry, everything's taken care of. I've fixed mine. These two individuals will fix theirs shortly, and we should be resilient to this particular vulnerability." And it was mind blowing at that point. Like, as you when you work with a really high caliber engineering team and they're really passionate about the quality of their code, and you show them what are the things that we are concerned with, they will start becoming concerned with it and they will actually do the work as well. So that's one of many examples that I experienced that segment.
I love your story, and I think that's a brilliant story. And I think the takeaway for me, number one, I want to do a big shout out to Colleen. She's a fantastic leader in this space, right? I have been advocating this for a long time. But what I love in your story particularly is that you're not talking just about security as a partner to engineering, partner to product management. You're almost talking about security as being a coach. The
Yeah.
investment that you make upfront pays dividends, right, significantly later. I think is the story that I'm taking away from this example.
Yeah, 100%. We invested a lot on security training at Segment, and it paid a lot of dividends. So we had a session called Think Like an Attacker. So when engineers on board, they had a few days of training, just overall training. And we had two security sessions. So one was Think Like an Attacker, where you can use Burp Suite or you can use the tools within your browser, and we talked about the biggest vulnerabilities that we had at Segment at the time and concerns of these particular vulnerabilities. And we showed folks how to exploit those vulnerabilities. How do attackers actually think about that? And then a couple of days later, the second part of that session is secure code review. You know, those 5 vulnerabilities that we exploited 2 days earlier? Let's show you how you can actually discover them as part of a code review and how to think about remediations for them. So we had that built in, but we also built in the training because it was interesting and fun and engaging. And people, the first interaction that they have with the security team was light, fun, and they weren't afraid to come to us. They came to us for a lot of different things. And this is the culture that Colleen set up, is that, no, we want to be partners, but we also want to coach and mentor you to think about things the right way. And we are not the boogeyman. You can come to us. Even if it's not fully a security thing, come to us. We'll figure it out and we'll partner with the right parts of the organization to do the right thing for the business. So, building up that sort of culture really made it really easy for Segment to have a very, very strong security posture in itself.
Got it. And how do you, what is your view of security from a risk management perspective?
Yeah. So I have a lot of philosophies when it comes to this. And I can take some examples of
Maybe we
rippling.
can talk about a very tangible example, right?
Yeah,
About, so you talked about vulnerability management and you talk about how that translates to risk, right?
perfect. Okay,
And
I
how to
like that.
bring in leadership into this. So maybe you can touch on
Yeah,
that.
let's talk about vulnerabilities. I love vulnerabilities. Well, I love fixing vulnerabilities. Let's just say that. So I came into Rippling, and one of my first things that I typically do whenever I come into an organization, I look at the vulnerability data or just look at security tooling data. That way, it helps me inform my program. Where should I invest a lot of my time into? If I see certain classes of vulnerabilities, maybe it makes sense for us to build out, help build the secure pay path so that engineers never have to worry about that particular type of vulnerability in itself. So came into Rippling, look at the data. Data wasn't in a good place. So I couldn't rely on the data in itself. Our vulnerability queue had vulnerabilities, but it also had tasks in there. I don't know why there were tasks in there. They're also what I call there were vulnerabilities so large that I would consider them as risks instead. So the first thing that we did was that we cleaned up that vulnerability queue in itself. So, um, and we actually defined what is a vulnerability. So, um, defining a vulnerability made it easier for us to align and clean up the queue. One of the things that I really wanted to ensure is that vulnerability should be bite-sized. It shouldn't be if a vulnerability would take 3 months to fix, no one's going to fix that. It's just not going to get done. So I'd
Yeah,
rather move that to the risk queue, and then coordinate and make sure that we work well with the engineering team to figure out how do we actually schedule that stuff, that
got it.
type of work in. But vulnerabilities should be bite size, and I typically said should be less than a sprint. And a sprint at Rippling for some of the teams were 2 weeks. So anything that's of that size or smaller is totally okay to be vulnerabilities. Also, we talked about the severity standard. Uh, in order to get anything fixed, everything had to be a critical or a high. And I'm like, this is not how a vulnerability, not all vulnerabilities are critical or high. So we created a severity standard. So me and Philippe on the team,
And
we
this is
looked,
not CVSS. So you don't
oh no.
like,
Oh
okay.
yeah. Okay. Oh, I think you're triggering me.
I know.
So, so philosophically, there are a bunch of different ways that you can actually measure severity. So we did it a bunch of different ways at Rippling. My biggest thing is I love using CWSS. Barely anyone has heard of it. Hopefully, your audience will now learn a little bit more. CWSS is Common Weakness Scoring System. And I love it because it talks about the system and the weakness in the system. Whereas CVSS talks about the strength of the vulnerability. It doesn't take account to all the controls that might be in place within that system. So we do that for any of our manually discovered vulnerabilities. So threat modeling, bug bounty, pen test, internally discovered stuff. We run CWSS on it for any of our security tooling vulnerabilities. So SCA, SAST, all those, maybe SCA, secrets, and all that sort of stuff. SAST is a little bit different. We would actually, what we did was we ran a few of those through CWSS, and we would try to figure out an automatic way of actually scoring it. And we did a hybrid of CVSS, APSS that came close to matching it. So it was good that way. And then the last one was sort of like
And just for the
misconfiguration.
sake of our audience, EPSS is the exploit probability
Yes. Yeah,
scoring. Okay, system.
exactly. Yeah, which is a fairly newish that a lot of the security tools are now using. So, what's the actual exploit probability for this particular vulnerability? And then security misconfigurations, we just categorize them. So I wanted to make sure that this was accurate, and we cleaned up the vulnerability queue, removed anything that was not a vulnerability, either based on the size of the fix or the nature of the actual ticket. We made sure that all of the severities were correct. And lo and behold, when they trusted that these are actual vulnerabilities, they started fixing them on their own.
Hmm.
It was very surprising to me initially when I saw that. I'm like, I didn't even prompt their VPs to start. They automatically just started fixing this because they trusted it. They looked at it again with their lens and like, this is actually a critical. Let me get that resolved. This is actually a high. I'm going to prioritize it in our queue. And so that trust, and I feel that security should always like, once you lose faith or trust in a security tool or security process, you're just going to ignore things that come out of it. So security has to be synonymous with trust in general.
No,
So
yeah.
yeah,
Go
go
ahead, go
ahead.
ahead.
Yeah, so like leveraging that vulnerability starting to get fixed, but then I started working really closely. Like I want to make sure I'm working within the engineer's work space in itself. So they have operational meetings. I started joining the ones with a lot of the VPs being there. We made the vulnerability metrics a gold standard and saying, okay, these are the ones that we want to sort of track just in general. And engineers all started using that, and they were able to follow the process there itself. So hooking into the process that they're familiar with made sure that we were moving in the right direction for vulnerabilities.
No, I love. I think there is a fantastic golden nugget. I think what you're basically saying is that I think security goes beyond, and pardon if this is a wrong analogy, preaching from the pulpit, right?
Yeah,
And you will have to go be there with the engineering team, understand what resonates with them, what makes sense to them, right? And these jargons don't mean anything much, right? Because CVSS, whatever they
yeah.
are, but I think that makes absolute sense, and you have to sort of meet them on their own terms.
Yeah, you nailed it. One of the things that coming into Rippling, my predecessor, Alberto, he mentioned, Jeevan, just don't say things, observe. Rippling is very different from the typical companies that you're at. It works a little bit differently. And that was great advice from him. But I also learned that at other organizations as well. Just a lot of time we shouldn't just do things. We should observe, we should interview engineers or stakeholders and really understand how things work. And then we come up with a process that doesn't add friction. It actually reduces friction. It's easier to do the right thing and harder to do the wrong thing in itself. And you'll start noticing things will move in the right direction itself.
No, I love it. You are a big proponent of threat models, and in fact, you talked about that a little bit. So, how do you think this the approach to threat modeling? What is the effect of that on the GRC teams?
Yeah. Um, I think it goes back to really thinking about reducing risk overall. So when I think about um, GRC, a big component is risk in the GRC. So I want to make sure that whenever we do threat model, we want to really consider risk in itself. So one of the programs that I've run in the past is like, um, I know that at a particular org, um, I had concerns that we had very few risks in certain areas. And what I wanted my security engineers to do is go sit, embed into those areas, talk to people that are there, like especially people that are either senior, like a director or a senior director, or someone that's been there for more than 5 years. They will know where all the bodies are buried. And they might not recognize that as a body, but they will know where it's buried once you start talking to them, having conversations, and asking them of those things. So, really understanding where the risks are within the organization, and then adding that back to the risk register. So, and with respect to the risk register, we also want to make sure that we are right sizing the work there as well. Um, and making sure that we're selecting the right risks in itself. So I've seen a lot of risk registers where they are not, they just add a lot of things to the risk register and they don't really provide guidance on a way to move forward in itself. We don't have to fix a risk in totality. That's not what we need to do. What we need to do is actually chip away at it to make it less less exploitable or less impactful than other risks in the risk queue. So we do it very simply at Rippling. It's simple, but it's very effective. We look at likelihood and impact. We just measure those things, 1 to 5 scale, and we just times those numbers. So impact of 5 and likelihood of 5 will give you 25, which will be the worst type of vulnerability ever. Log4Shell would be a great example of that particular risk there. Or like likelihood of 1, impact of 1 would be things that you don't probably won't be prioritizing. So we base our top 10 on there, top 10 risks, and we work really closely with our VPs and our CTO so that they understand our top risks. But also, we are actively working on it. So, one of the cool things that we've done here at Rippling is that we have a quarterly meeting with, we have we have a sixth VP of engineering that we've just hired. And what we do is we have a quarterly security posture meeting. So first we talk about vulnerabilities. So I should also talk about the stakeholders. Security leadership is there, the VP is there, our CTO is there, and we have a really good conversation about the security posture within that particular organization. Some of the good things that have landed, but also the challenges that we see and concerns that we have in the future. And what it's done is really expose these risks to people that are typically not in the risk register day in, day out. And it's really helped us drive a lot more um, tooling or risk reduction in particular areas. So, uh, can't give you any exact examples, but like I remember from the last time we did it, my CTO wasn't aware of a particular risk, and we sat down, laid out our concerns, and like, yeah, we are definitely concerned about this now. Next quarter, we're going to schedule work in, and we did. We scheduled the work in into it, and we're working right from it. So being able to really work closely with people that are able to impact and change how we do things and showing them the technical concerns that we have within their space has and having good leaders as well that are receptive to these conversations has really moved the needle. Like I want to say, like I've never seen a collaboration like I have at Rippling, and it's really moved things a lot faster than I have at other programs.
No, I think that is brilliant. Like the question, and I think what he seemed to have done. uh, My guess is that many struggle, right, to bring the engineering leaders and the product leaders into this conversation. What would your advice be to them? What do you tell them?
Yeah, this is hard. This is a very hard problem to solve. I've been very lucky. So, the engineering leadership team at Rippling is probably the best that I've ever worked with, just in general. They care deeply about the business. They care deeply about the quality of the app itself. So, it wasn't too hard to make this happen on our side. What I recommend this to all of the security engineers that I work with, or whoever have reached out. Understand who are the right leaders in our ecosystem. Life is way too short to work for companies or leaders that don't get it. Understand who are the great leaders. We talked a little bit about Colleen. She's amazing. My first security VP, Ben, was amazing. These are the people that you should gravitate towards and find ways to get into their organizations and understand how to do security well. And like just by being in their atmosphere or their ecosystem, you'll become better at what you do as well. All of it will rub off on you in itself. So work for great security leaders, work for great engineering leaders, and like things will work out well. Like also great praise to Duncan for making this happen at Rippling. He's been able to really dive deep with these engineering leaders, making sure he has those thoughtful conversations and the E team so that they are aware of all these concerns and really be able to facilitate have that really close collaboration.
Got it. And I would actually do a big shout out to you, Jeevan. You are a fantastic leader in this space. And if anybody listening here, they have to reach out to you. Maybe we'll maybe we can describe how they can reach out to you. We
Yeah,
can.
I I take random LinkedIn's from everyone. So
Okay.
unless you're a vendor, then I might put you on pause.
Okay.
But like I've been very blessed being in security. I really believe that my life changed when I joined security. I'm much happier. The problems are way harder. I'm much happier. And that was all because the first few people that I interacted with in security. So I had my team at Vision Critical, Ben Sweeney, Fazil, all these folks that I interacted with that made me better at becoming a security engineer. But also the community. The security community, bar none, is the strongest community in the technical space. We all are going through challenges and problems, and we all help each other. So being in that space and having everyone really help me, coach me get to where I am, I love doing that. So if you are on LinkedIn, have any questions, feel free to reach out. Shoot me a DM. It might take me a couple of days to get back to you, but I'll definitely get back to you and provide you my opinion. I have no shortage of opinions. I'll provide you some of my opinions.
Sure. So I think you've talked a lot about Jeevan, about the security being a coach, GRC being a coach, the alignment of security, GRC, product with product and engineering. So culture plays an important role in everything that you just talked about. So maybe let's double click on that a little bit. How do you build that culture?
Yeah, I think everything starts with strong leadership, having a good vision. So I know that the first few things that I do whenever I join an organization is really understand what are the short-term and long-term goals for the organization. And I align my goals, my priorities for product security with respect to that. So I could give an example of last year. Looking at the security and engineering team goals, I came in and I set up a few themes for the product security team. Set up operational excellence. I felt that we need to get much better at that. Those vulnerabilities were in bad shape. Security reviews were done, like the SLAs weren't defined. So all these sort of items, and I want to reduce toil as well. In order to be operationally excellent, you shouldn't have to do a lot of things. You should have automations that do a lot of things for you. So had theme around that. And it made it easy for having, I had a couple of other themes. One, operational excellence, building a strong foundation, as well as bringing down risk. So having these themes really made it easy for the ICs on my team itself, to understand the type of projects that we want to take on and make sure that they align to those projects. So having a way to really think about that. And a lot of those themes came because of the lack of data that I had as well. So I need to gather all this data so that now and in the future, I can make data-driven decisions. What should my roadmap look like? So let me look at the data. Okay, I'm noticing these classes of vulnerabilities, or these are the gaps so that I've noticed because my SCA program has showed me these gaps. I want to be able to really build out a roadmap based on the data itself. And then it's easy to prioritize that data as well. So when you discover these gaps, you would understand the risks, what's the likelihood, what is the impact of these things to happen, and then you sort of can prioritize it that way. And always go back to engineering. How does engineering do their work? And a lot of the latest companies that I've worked with, they sort of have a framework of objectives and key results, so OKRs that we call it. So you have your main objective. Maybe your main objective is to reduce the amount of vulnerabilities that are introduced into the ecosystem. Okay. Then you have a number of key results that would be underneath that objective over the year, multiple quarters or over the year, to make sure that you be able to do that in itself. So being able to make sure that you have the right data, you're able to prioritize the things on your roadmap, and properly planning to address those roadmap items will really help ensure that you have a very focused team. If everyone's rowing in the same direction, you're going to get to your destination a lot faster. If you have a very varied division, like if you have 20 things instead of 3 themes, then everyone's rowing in their own direction, and not everyone's going to be able to get over the finish line itself.
Got it. So I think in essence, to build an effective security culture, bring your leadership along, or at least go work for the leaders that you like. Make it data driven, right? So it is, and plan around it effectively,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Through that's what
Yeah.
I'm hearing.
One other thing I forgot to add to it is actually a lot of the programs that I've been a part of very recently, I would say in the last 5, 7 years, we have to measure the type of impact that we're making in the business. So if you're not really risk reducing, what are you doing anyways? Like, why are we doing that project? So really understanding the impact that you're making. So, um, uh, SCA, we've been talking about that. Um, how many, like, we kicked off that program last year, and now we're ingesting all data for all repos. Um, but that doesn't make impact. Knowing what's out there doesn't make the impact. The impact is actually patching or removing those libraries from your ecosystem. That's the impact. So being able to, so it's great that your data-driven priorities, planning all that, but you have to deliver the impact as
Beautifully
well.
said. Beautifully said. Got so got it. No, I just don't report on it. Do something about it. Right now,
Yeah.
you have talked a lot about the paved path for security, and I think you also touched on that with GRC. If for a listener who's out there and they want to build a paved path, any advice on how they can go about doing it?
Yeah. First, understanding what a paid path is. So I know that there are a lot of San Francisco-based companies that talk about paid path, and we talked a tiny bit about it. We want to make it easy for engineers to do the right thing in itself. So if I can build in my permission framework to be a default lockdown, and people have to add items to the allow list or attributes to their APIs to show that, hey, I'm going to reduce the security posture for this. I want to allow everyone to be able to hit this API or whatever it is. By default, we should have everything secure and make it additional steps to make it unsecure in a way that we can actually track things in itself. So those are pay path, and I've seen a lot of security engineering orgs where they have taken over certain responsibilities or built out features themselves. So I've been at an org where they automated how to ask for and get certificates. So it made it really easy for that. File processing is another great example. File processing can be a very problematic functionality within your application. There are numerous remote code execution RCEs that can be discovered as part of the file processing workflow. So centralizing, having a singular file processing system, throwing it into separate AWS accounts will help ensure that the blast radius for these sort of items are going to be very minimal. So when we talk about PayPass, that's what we're talking about. We're trying to make sure that engineers are doing the right thing and that the blast radius is minimal. There's no real impact if a particular vulnerability gets exploited. And really, like I want to go back to the risk conversation. So having those conversations with your engineering partners and saying, "Hey, this is a big problem. It's our part of our top 5 or top 10 risks. We think we can chip away at it. Let's first thing let's centralize how we do all of our file processing. That way, if there are vulnerabilities, we don't have to patch 8 different areas or make modifications to eight different areas. Let's do it in a singular place. So that reduces the risk rating maybe by a tiny amount. Okay, let's move the file processing out of where we have most of our data in AWS. Let's move it to somewhere else so that even if someone were able to get an RCE, they can't do anything. They can't break out of the sandbox in itself. So when I talk about paid paths, I really want to make sure that we're prioritizing the right things with our partners. We don't want to make a paid path for everything. We want to prioritize what we think is the most riskiest and do it in a way that you get results quarter over quarter in itself so that you're not having to wait 6, 9 months before you see any impact in itself. Every single quarter, you're delivering something, reducing that risk in itself. So that's why we really want to make sure that we're driving towards when we're building out our paid paths. And I like to call it secure pay paths, just because you can walk down it without having to worry about someone attacking you on that pay path.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. You today, do you have GRC as a function reporting into you into
No, no.
security?
The GRC is reporting into our CISO, Duncan, but we have a fabulous relationship with the GRC team. They
Got it.
are really, really great people.
So,
Yeah.
if you were to think as a security engineer and a security leader, if you were to think of a dream GRC solution, what would that look like?
Well, first, it'll be the team that we already have.
Okay.
But
Okay.
in addition to them, we talked a little bit about the engineering capabilities. I would really love for us to add a few more GRC folks that are technical or have. Right now, we don't mind doing that work for them. Like, we're our partners, we are one team. So if there are stuff that benefits any team, InfoSec, incident response, product security, we always look at what's the most beneficial thing to work on for the team, organization, the business. So if there are ways that we can actually benefit the GRC, we don't mind building out that. But like we talked a little bit about at Segment, where they actually had an actual software engineer that was on the team that actually built out a lot of the automations to just reduce that toil. That's what I love about it. So my dream GRC team would be folks that are very strong at engineering, really understand how to think like engineers, how to build processes, scalable processes like engineers, self-service processes, and are really thoughtful and collaborative with the engineering team when it comes to controls and rolling out controls themselves. So, but also pusher, like they have to push. They have to add that we talked about healthy friction, continuously adding healthy friction with the security team, but also with the engineering team in all aspects of the business.
Got it. No, that's brilliant. I think we are approaching the end of the segment. Jeevan, are there any podcasts, audiobooks, books that you read, you listen to that you want to share with our listeners today?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm a AppSec heavy individual, so I love all the AppSec sort of related podcasts. So Chris Romeo has a great one. Ken Johnson, Seth Law have another one. So Absolute AppSec is another great one. So there are some really fantastic individuals and thought leaders within the AppSec space. OWASP is just great in general as a resource. Highly recommend. I love to see more GRC folks in conferences that OWASP provides. So just get exposed to some of the problems and challenges that we're running into, be able to wrap their head around those sort of things. Books, I haven't read too many in the last while, but I love reading books about. I love reading books about technology themselves. Like, how do we think about these technological problems? Yeah, there's plenty of books in that space. I run into a lot of different type of problems in itself. Yeah, so there's so many great books out there. Yeah, but definitely conferences. Come out to GRC folks. Please come out to our conferences. Speak with us. Let's build stronger relations. Let's make sure that we can help you on
Got it.
your path, your career path as well.
And if folks want to meet you, where do you
Yeah,
typically hang out?
I'm Vancouverite, so if
Okay.
you're in Vancouver, you can catch me at OWASP meetups for sure. But I'll be at a few conferences this year, so you can catch me at B-Side Seattle, B-Side San Francisco this year. So I'll be volunteering at B-Side Seattle. I'll be in the AppSec PNW area, so Application Security Pacific Northwest. You can catch me there. I'll be floating at B-Side San Francisco. I'll be walking around, so feel free, grab me, ask me questions, tell me my opinions suck. I don't care. Like, just reach out, let's chat. Let's make sure that we build a stronger and better community.
This has been a fantastic discussion, Jeevan. I thoroughly loved it. So thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. These were hard questions. So I'm glad that we were able
So
to sort of chat through them.
thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to Security and GRC Decoded. We are your go-to resource for staying ahead in governance, risk, and compliance. If today's episode resonated with you, we would love for you to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your network. To dive deeper into these topics, visit us at compliancecow.com and follow us on LinkedIn for more insights and community conversations. Join us next time as we continue decoding the future of GRC. Thank you.